Space, the final frontier. Well, okay, not really. All right, take two. Here in the Mitten State, welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek, spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone.
Hey, we are back on the Secret Friends Unite Podcast Network. This is Code 47, episode 102. I am Charlie Carden, the Lionel Richie of your Commodores, Commodore of the USS Grand Petoskey of the International Star Trek Fan Club, and of course of this delightful program that you've been following with us for over 100 episodes. I am joined by my esteemed partner, the Trekker from Greater Chicagoland, Jen Watson. Jen, good morning.
Good morning.
How are things over there in the City of Wind?
It's a little cooler than usual, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, true. Same here.
Pretty good. Things are
pretty good deal. Rock and roll. Well, we are back. This is the second of our floating episodes because we're kind of without new content until next week when we start talking about Strange New Worlds. I was very fortunate in so much that working through my partner Kurt Krug, who's a member of our chapter, the USS Grand Petoskey, and a freelance journalist, that he helped me make contact with the good folks at the promotions department at Viacom, and I got myself a screener of the first 6 episodes of season 2 of Strange New Worlds. Very exciting. We've watched 4 of them. Those 4 all contain materials and kind of plot lines that you end up seeing in the trailers and stuff. So, and I would certainly never reveal anything I've seen because that's against the code. But I can tell you, and I think I mentioned this on a tweet and on some social media things yesterday, that season 2 is better than season 1. If you can even wind yourself up to the concept, it's just absolutely, it's like bam, bam, bam. Every episode has something different. Everybody's getting moments. Everybody's getting kind of a touch and a touchstone and some different moments and everything. So just buckle up. So, if you're listening to this on Monday, when it comes out on Thursday of same week, on the 15th is when that first episode will drop. So hang on, watch it. We'll be back later in the month. I know we're kind of juggling who's going to be with me, but we will definitely have some people on to talk about those first 2 episodes, since 2 weeks will have gone by. So, yes.
I was going to say I'm very excited about that.
Yes, as well you should be. I heard you have it sounds like you have a combatant there in the room with you. Meow, meow.
I do. He's in here with me.
It's okay. It's
Oliver.
No worries. That actually happened with my partner Todd on our main show, and he's usually like me. He's very buttoned up, but he's got a ninja cat that just kind of appears. Oh, there you are, Oliver. Yeah. There you go. He has not learned his basic cat lessons. Up is good, down is bad. No, up is bad, down is good.
He is a good cat and a pretty cat.
Yes, exactly. And you don't need to treat him with the phaser, as Riker had suggested for Spot. That would be naughty. So Anyway, yes, much like with last episode, we are going to tackle in a segment that I've dubbed a very special episode, a great episode of Star Trek spanning the franchise, and one that is potentially Jen, what do people call the opposite of great? I'm struggling for a word here.
Bad.
Yes, an episode that is bad. All right. Well, two sides of the same coin. And again, always keep in mind, good and bad in entertainment is over 100% subjective. I may talk about this great episode, and you may say, and Jen may present her bad episode, and you go, well, I just don't know what you're talking about because it's a classic, and I'm not going to reveal it. But the thing is, I'd love to hear if somebody feels differently. At Secret Friends U, that is where you find us. On Twitter to discuss such things, and you'll see our contact information as we go on. But it would be criminal of me to forget to mention and give special thanks to our Patreons. These are the people that make it possible for us to deliver great new additional content. Jen is joining me. You'll hear later this month about our exploration of a few episodes of the first season of NBC's Sequest DSV, which I absolutely loved, and Jen had a capital good time doing it, I could tell.
Yeah.
But you'll also hear programming from Todd Oxford and myself about, oh my goodness, I think he's serious. It's okay. But anyway, we would love to have you visit us over at patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. The good folks at Patreon are now actually giving you the opportunity to have a week-long trial of our content so that you can check it out and decide if you want to stay on board for more of what we have to offer. But those fine folks on our BFFs level are the awesome Nias family, Sean, Stella, and Henry, my dear friend Missy Merchant, and her pal Andy Milliken. On the Best Buds level, we have Jamie Prinky. So thank you, all of you, for supporting us. And officially, my shill is over. But again, patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. Check out our content, and you can do that for a week for free. Okay, let's get on with talking about Star Trek. Oh my gosh. Okay, so the first episode, we're gonna do good, bad, not bad, good, because that seems kind of antithetical to me. But we're gonna jump in with my selection. I did pick the bad episode last time, so now I'm gonna pick the good episode, or at least in my opinion. And again, obviously, we're Star Trek fans. We feel that the vast majority of what out there is pretty great. But some greater than others? I don't know. But this is one, to me, particularly in the first season of a series, and in the first season of a series, as opposed to, I think, Jen, you might agree, in the modern age of Star Trek storytelling, we've had some great shows that have jumped right out the gate with a great first season. Lower Decks had a great first season.
Yeah.
Strange New Worlds had a great first season, but the second season's better, I'm thinking. This was and they had 3/4 of a season. I'm talking about Deep Space Nine, which dropped in January of 1993. Definitely struggled to find its voice in the first season. The second season was a little rocky too, but this was a gem. This was the second to last episode. This would be season 1, episode 19, is called Duet. After a Cardassian man arrives on the station suffering from an illness that he could have only contracted at a Bajoran labor camp during the occupation, Major Kira leads an investigation to determine whether he is actually a notorious war criminal. Wow. This one was a shocker. This was, again, from the spring of 1993. I'll go ahead and open this corroborating link here. But I was a DS9 episode watcher from the jump. I had been a watch it every week, tape it every week, TNG watcher at this point, because we were now in season 6 of TNG. And when DS9 came along, not only was I fully engaged, but the television station that my mom worked at broadcast the show. It was in syndication. So it was on, Saturday nights or Sunday mornings or something. So again, it was one that I watched and taped and just was absolutely crazy for, even though we were getting a lot of, cookie cutter 90s sci-fi plots like, oh, there's a space anomaly that's going to make the station tear in half or whatever. Or, Rumpelstiltskin and Buck Bokai, the baseball player, showing up. Or, Q shows up and it's a real throwaway. Or, we're trying to pull in episodes from TNG that make you go, hey, I remember those Klingons, or this thing, or the Storyteller episode where it's the village on Bajor. It's just like, you guys are really trying, but you're just not getting anything to hit the mark. After what I thought was a very strong series premiere, in my opinion. But this episode gives you serious insight into, I think, the burgeoning character of Kira Nerys, learning more about the horrors of the Bajoran occupation, when she talks very specifically about this Cardassian warlord, Gul. Oh God, I'm already forgetting.
Gul Darhe'el.
Gul Darhe'el, which I just think is a great name. Heel. I like to put heel in the name. That's a good one. But yeah, I mean, she, when they snag this guy who appears to be a filing clerk coming in just completely by accident on a freighter, contracting this Kalnor syndrome, which they know could only have come from this Galatep labor camp. You find that the filing clerk is maintaining his innocence until he is revealed, and then he, turns on a heel, so to speak, and really starts acting outrageously evil. So, okay, that's my lineup. Jen, your thoughts, please.
I love this episode. This is, for me, the episode where DS9 shows us not only what it can be, but what it's going to be.
Right.
Yeah. I had no problem with the earlier episodes of DS9. A lot of people have big problems with it. I think that the first season talks a lot about stories, like the storyteller episode. If Wishes Were Horses also dives into stories and kind of what you want to be real. And they talk a lot about the Bajoran prophets and how are they prophets? Are they aliens? It's all about the stories and the mythology going into it. And for a series that eventually takes this turn into like dark, gritty realism, it's an interesting start to what the series is. DS9 as a whole is about perspective and who's right, who's wrong, what's really going on here. And not only is there the heel turn, but there's the additional turn at the end of this one where we find out that
Right.
he's not actually a Goldar heel at all. He is Maritza the file clerk. He had surgery to make himself resemble Goldar heel because he wants to be guilty.
Right.
And
He wants someone to pay, and he
yeah,
wants it so bad he's willing to give his own life because
yeah.
he felt his cowardice. As he said, I cowered under my bunk because I couldn't stand the screams, and he's in tears. And I just thought it was brilliant. I mean, and maybe even at, I was 17 when I saw this. Maybe at my age, I wasn't able to fully appreciate just how brilliant it was. But yeah, let's have a look at. I'm kind of curious if this was maybe. I know often when we talk about these episodes, we find out that the writers are someone that, like, maybe it's a spec script, and that looks like it really might be the case here. It's teleplay by Peter Allen Fields, who I know is a regular to the series, but the story is by Lisa Rich and Gene Kerrigan Fauci. Now, those are not names that I recognize as writers.
Them either.
So this was, as we've talked about many times on other episodes, talk about Voyager and Next Generation of this era, they had kind of an open door policy, the slush pile of the spec scripts, you could send something in. And if the powers to be, the producers, thought that it was worthy, they would pick it up and produce it. But of course, then they bring in somebody to do the teleplay or the screenplay and kind of bring it into synchronization with what a Star Trek story should be. Absolutely brilliant. Certainly, without a doubt, top 10 for the series. And somehow, some way, this did not make it into our top bracket for when, back in episode 100 when we did our bracket challenge. But it was so tight. It was so tight.
Nine, they're so hard to pick, this was almost, because I was like, the one that I chose for that one was the Nog episode of It's Only a Paper Moon from season 7, but I'm like, duet, like, it was one of my honorable mentions for if I were to make this bracket all by myself, this is probably one of the ones that would go in there as a top 5.
Absolutely.
The acting from Nana Visitor, and I can't recall the name of the guest star, unfortunately, but
Harris Yulin is his name.
Yes.
Yeah, and he was an actor he saw in a lot of different things back in the day.
It's just, both of them are just so fantastic, so compelling in this. As the mystery is uncovered, Odo's finding more information and they're contacting Ducat, and Ducat says, "No, Darheel died. I was at his funeral." And Kira's like, "No, he must be lying," because she wants so badly for this guy to be guilty. So he makes himself into someone who is guilty. You think it's going to be the question of, is he guilty just by being a filing clerk? Is he complicit in the atrocities that happened at this labor camp? And that you think that's going to be the big moral question of the episode. It sort of is. But the thing with this one that really gets me is that she hears what he says. She sees the guilt that he feels in this. And she doesn't forgive him, but she recognizes that he recognizes that he was part of this, that he was part of something that was wrong. The key to this is, and the key to considering him capable of redemption in the first place, is that he recognizes his part in all of this. He admits it. And he seems to be making an effort to do better, to be better, to prove that he and other Cardassians aren't what others think based on what they did.
Right. Which
Without
is,
that,
wow.
without that recognition, without him being able to say, yes, I did something wrong. This is what I did wrong. And here's how I'm going to be better about it in the future. He can't actually be absolved.
Right.
So
Wow.
that's because prior to that, he's spinning lies. He's doing things very Cardassian way.
Right.
He's doing what he's used to, thinking that, oh, maybe someone's going to see through this. Someone's going to actually do this. He has to be direct. He has to be honest. He has to show his feelings, that he was scared and terrified and cowering. And he has to speak his truth in order
Right.
for what he wants to actually happen, which actually doesn't, because she lets him go.
Right. And there's nothing, I think, that stings more than the conclusion of this.
The end.
You know, it was sprinkled in that, you know, there's a drunk in the drunk tank in Odo's in the brig. And then, he finally gets released and says, Odo, let me know when you decide to kill the Cardassian. The guy stumbles out. And then, Kira is walking Maritza out at the end and saying, we're going to move forward with this. You know, you did the right thing. You know, it was very courageous, blah, blah. And the same drunk is standing by that little, it's like the little to-go drink station at the end of Quarks, where the little outcropping of the bar. And he just pops out and pulls out a knife and stabs Darhiel a killing blow in the kidneys. And Darhiel slumps to the ground, or Maritza slumps to the ground, and is dead. And then Kira turns back to the drunk man who's being held back by Odo, and he says, "Why? He wasn't Darhiel." He says, "He's a Cardassian, and that's enough." And she says, she's in tears, or the Nana visitor doing what she does so spectacularly at the threshold of tears, and making us want to feel tears as well. But no, it says Maritza's already dead when Kira replies, as much to herself as anyone else, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Extremely powerful. Hate for hate's sake, hating anyone based on their religion, based on their race, based on basically the actions of others who perhaps they've associated with, will never bring anyone peace. And that's the very compelling message here. I mean, it's even... God, I mean, even just if you're reading on Memory Alpha, just some of the quotes from this going back and forth. Yeah, I mean, that last exchange being the most critical one. But yeah, Maritza, I covered my ears at night, but I couldn't bear to hear those horrible screams. You have no idea what it's like to be a coward, to see these horrors and be able to do nothing. Maritza's dead, and he deserves to be dead. Whew. Really, really powerful stuff. And as I said, in a season, there were a lot of light and fluffy stories in that first season. Good, bad, I don't know. But I mean, just really, really contrary to what we came to find that the series was going to be in the 6 seasons that followed. But just to see this, and then really was followed up by I wasn't the follow-up episode. I ended up watching the next episode, which was the season finale, which was basically the Scopes monkey trial in space, science versus religion in school. And I could just easily pick that one, but this was what a 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Any final thoughts before we move on?
I don't think I can say anything else that I haven't already said. Just it's a tragedy in the end.
Right. Unbelievable. And as always, do remember, as in my newly appointed role as helping promote Viacom, all Star Trek episodes, including the films, I believe currently are available on Paramount Plus. If you do not use Paramount Plus, I would be really surprised if there would not be a free trial available to you with Strange New Worlds coming out this week. So I would visit the Paramount Plus website and have a look. It is, in my opinion, the easiest and most convenient way to watch Star Trek. So it gets my highest recommendation. Okay, shilling over. Yes, please.
I was just going to also add that the first season of Strange New Worlds is available on YouTube right now if you live in the United States.
Correct. Absolutely. Yes, our North American friends watch it on YouTube. And then if your appetite is whetted, pop on over to Paramount Plus and you'll be able to watch season 2 starting this upcoming Thursday. Okay, Jen, now it's your show. You're going to lead us into, and I think it's funny because anytime you jump into episodes of this series, and I don't want to spoil it, particularly with a certain segment of fans, it's almost as if episodes from the series can do no wrong. However, You and I strongly disagree, which is why you're going to talk about this episode now.
Okay, so I have a difficult time picking a bad Star Trek episode. I tend to think I can find some good in just about anything.
I agree.
I had it narrowed down to 3. So just to put on here, my runners up were Prophet and Lace from Deep Space Nine, which really, I just want to add, everything could have been solved if they had just called Pell. That's it. That's all I have to say about that.
Can't bring back guest stars. Apparently it's against the law.
Just saying. The next runner-up was The Fight from Voyager, which I found just completely incomprehensible.
Useless.
There's nothing more I can say about it. But there's one that I think can actually have some discussion. There's something to say about it. It is from the original series, which I don't want to pick on the original series just for being the original series. I recognize that many episodes are of its time. This one is definitely of its time, but I think that it goes beyond just being of its time and actually kind of goes into, this is not what Star Trek is about. And that is Turnabout Intruder, the last episode of the original series. What a horrible way to go out. I'm just saying.
I know. I was just thinking, it's not even really a death rattle. It's or a whimper. It's just, this aired and I would have to dig into to look at dates, but I mean, this aired in June of 1969,
which looks like it was a couple episodes or a couple months past when the previous episode had aired.
Oh yeah. Okay. But it was also within weeks of the moon landing.
Yeah.
Which ironically bolstered the American public's interest in things related to space. Yeah. And very famously, within the years of the series being canceled, and again, Star Trek, the original series, is a series that got canceled all 3 seasons. Yeah. So it was they were always trying to do it in, but they went back, and I've told the story before, they went back, analyzed the ratings, and found out when they looked at it in a certain different fashion, it was one of the most popular programs they've ever had, and canceling it was lunacy. So, but as you said, to go out with this as a parting segment, and as I wrote in our notes, I wrote series finale in single quotes, because it was simply just over.
It was just the last episode. It wasn't.
Yeah. It's just over. No fanfare. But anyway.
All right, so our description of this one, Dr. Janice Lester, a mad scientist, tries to take control of the Enterprise by switching bodies with Captain Kirk. So they are on this planet randomly. There's this woman that happens to be Kirk's ex. And the line that she gives is, "Your world of starship captains doesn't admit women."
They've been regretting that for almost 60 years, throwing that line out there.
Yeah, so she is full of angst and woe over Kirk choosing space over her. She thinks she can't go serve. She's in Starfleet ostensibly, or was. They talk about her time in Starfleet. Yeah. So the entire episode is built on this premise that women may serve but not captain, which is just false, just patently false. And I don't think it was true at the time either, even if we didn't actually see any females in command of starships. I mean, not just through the retcons.
Right. The retcons, for sure, I will tell you, in actual parlance of the first time we saw a female captain, was actress Madge Sinclair at the beginning of Star Trek 4.
Okay.
In 1986. Almost 20 years after almost at the 25-year anniversary mark of the original series. So, boo. But retconned and novels and comics, absolutely. But yeah, the statement that, 300 years in the future, that no woman could possibly rise to the rank of, because you didn't see an admiral or a commodore or a captain. You didn't see who was the highest ranking woman we ever even saw, potentially Majel Barrett as number 1 in the unaired pilot of the Cager, in the footage that you saw in the the Menagerie, the 2-parter in season 1, where she's referred to as lieutenant, yet she is the first officer. But someone with the rank of lieutenant commander, you can find they'll go back and forth. Might be a lieutenant, might be a commander. But yeah, that was the highest ranking, I think, woman that we ended up seeing in the original series, which sucks.
So she thinks he wants to kill her, maybe metaphorically. She says that it's better to be dead than to be a woman.
Oh, jeez.
There's all of this internalized misogyny with this character, which I think is not so much internalized because it's written by a man, and so much of this episode is men writing women with like capital letters here, where it's the way that a sexist man will think that a woman thinks in order to explain actions which he can't possibly comprehend. She's got this thing where she switches her body with Kirk. There's no explanation given as to how this thing works. She just has a thing that does the thing.
Yep, that's that. From the Lego Movie.
Yeah.
We put this thing on the other thing,
and it
yeah. You're welcome to the sound effect. There you go.
Yeah. So, yeah, what a guy thinks a woman thinks and acts like if he's never met one or has been wronged by one and makes assumptions.
It's almost as if it was an AI, which is, of course, the big, oh, God, the AIs are going to take our jobs. An AI would write an episode like this.
It almost seems like it. It's like, oh, gosh, have you met a woman? So she's trying to kill Kirk so that she can stay in his body. And she's like, this is brilliant. With this experience, I'll be invulnerable to suspicion. I've figured out how to run the starship. I can do it better than he can because reasons. And Spock knows something's up. So does McCoy. And they decide to put her on a kind of trial because they know this isn't Kirk. They know Kirk won't act like this. They know him better than anyone. Meanwhile, Kirk in the body of Janice Lester is in the infirmary, just sort of being held there by this other doctor who McCoy reveals has been dismissed from the medical board. It's he's medically incompetent.
He's a crap doctor. Yeah.
Yeah. So they've got a part where Chapel comes in to check on Janice, and she's just following orders at that point. She's not questioning anything. She's just doing what she's told, as though women just do what they're told if they're good. So the way that she's written here is like just this like, okay, I'm just gonna do my job, and this is what the doctor says, and the doctor says I can't do that, so I'm not gonna do that.
Doctor says you've got to get better, so we're gonna take you to the starbase.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Ooh.
Yeah.
A man said, so I got to do it.
Janice as Kirk is going to direct them to this colony instead of the starbase, which is closer, where she could theoretically get better treatment. But she's like, no, it has to be this other colony, has to be this other place. And there's this scene on the bridge where everyone's like, are you sure about that? What's going on? And she's so insistent that everyone follows her orders, even when they make no sense at all, that she's just unhinged. She's going power mad. And she winds up actually hitting Kirk in Lester's body. And that's like the big key that everyone's like, that's definitely not Kirk. Kirk would never.
Yeah. He tackles her and he's beating her up in the hallway. Yeah. It's like, oh, what are you doing? Oh, she attacked me or whatever. Yeah, whatever his excuse was. So this is just so absolutely
it's just
all over the place.
Scene after scene of her being unhinged.
Right.
Just completely unhinged.
And just Shatner as an actor just chewing the opportunity to act like a woman or act like a jealous, possessive.
Yeah.
There's no way of getting out of this. It's like they just oh my God, it was like an episode of The Simpsons that Candy McFarlane and I talked about in one of our Patreon segments recently, where at the end of it, all the characters are digging a hole to try to find something that's not there. And at the end of it, you see this camera shot where they're all the way at the bottom. And okay, how are we going to get out of here? They dig faster, and someone says, no, dig up, stupid. Oh my God, that's the name of this episode. Dig up, stupid.
Oh, geez.
Because they just can't get themselves out of this hole.
No. But in the hearing, this is the saving grace of this episode for me, is this point in the hearing where the statement is that Dr. Janice Lester tried to gain a position which was unattainable by temperament or training, which is to say, it's not that she's a woman, it's that she is
A nutcase.
unstable.
Yeah. She's a whack-a-madoo. Yeah.
She's not well.
Yeah.
She's her mental health is not being taken care of. She was not given any kind of care or attention. Yeah, it was, she's dismissed as crazy.
Right.
And
That's all it is. Go to sleep, crazy lady. Yeah.
right. And the way that it's presented as, well, she's crazy because she's a woman, is the part that I have problems with.
A little bit, yeah.
The line of, the position is unattainable by temperament or training could apply to anybody regardless of gender.
Right. It's just that's not your skill set. You're not a leader. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
But the fact she's so mad about it, and she's just, again, unhinged. It says all capital letters, unhinged.
Unhinged.
All Kirk has to do at that point is just sit back and let her dig her own grave.
Right. Dig up, stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. And somehow, reasons, shenanigans, it just switches back because Kirk has the strength of character to force himself back into his own body. There's no, it's not like they're using that
the switcher because he's back at the planet. Yeah. It can just happen on its own. It doesn't need yeah, exactly. But it needs to initiate it, but you don't need to be in the machine to have it. So there's not even any sci-fi logic to how the brain swapper thing works. It's just with the power of positive thinking, you can make it
Kirk's
disengage.
Dominant male brain just being a thing and taking over because she's just a lady and she can't hold her.
Oh my God. Oh. There could be there could be, I mean, talk about ending in a death rattle, because really if you watch, and we talked about the third season of the original series on this show, not too terribly long ago, because we're finishing in this episode, the third season of Voyager, and we've been going in a row. So it's like third season of DS9, third season of TNG, then DS9, then Voyager. So prior to that, we did, within the last year, we talked TOS, and it was Peter and myself. And the third season of TOS was just rife with huge budget cuts. Key people left. Gene Roddenberry was barely involved. NBC dumped it on Friday nights at 10 o'clock, which back in the 60s, people weren't watching TV then, or it was really challenging, or they were, and the ratings just weren't picking it up. So they were just, the powers that be were trying to kill the show off. And talk about, you couldn't really find a greater example of one of the most god-awful. I mean, the season started with Spock's brain, another one of arguably the worst episodes of TOS, and it ends with this. And what's sandwiched in between, I mean, this is episode 24 of 24 of the season. I mean, you tell me, even without looking at a list, I could name maybe 2 episodes that I thought were passably good in the third season. I mean, they're all stinkers for the most part.
It's not great. Yeah. In general, I'm not looking at a list right now, and a lot of original series for me just sort of all blends together because
I know it's just it's not my thing either. I'm with you.
I mean, I like the original series, but I'm just saying that it blends together because there's not like a through line. Where even with the 90s shows that are episodic, there's a through line. You can see the evolution of growing the beard
watching
for
characters
both
grow.
Next Gen and DS9 and everything really. But the original series is interchangeable. As far as the story. So I don't know what necessarily is third season, second season, first season off the top of my head without looking
it's hard. It's hard to tell because you don't really see the characters grow dramatically. I mean, maybe you see fits and spurts with like Spock, but you gotta, I mean, even with the original series, only Kirk, Spock, and then later on McCoy were billed starring characters. Everyone else, you even notice in this Memory Alpha list, all the other characters are guest stars. So even though, Scotty gets a story or Chekhov gets a story and like a little tiny piece of character development. But anyway, I guess we don't really need to turn this on just ripping on the original series.
Yeah, because I don't want to rip on the original series. It is a series that was incredibly progressive for its time.
Unbelievably
I love that for this show. We we would not have anything else without this. It's everything
You said
about
it,
it for
Oliver.
this
Thank
time.
you.
Yeah, I know. That's it. I just want to add one more thing about this episode, and that's that it ends with the line of Kirk saying, "Her life could have been as rich as anyone's, if only." And it just,
If only there wasn't this episode.
if only, well, the unspoken thing that you're going, if only
She was a
a
dude.
man.
Oh my God. Yeah,
But
because that's what they were thinking.
that's what they were thinking. But I really want to believe in my heart of hearts that James Kirk is thinking, if only she had received proper mental health care, because that's the right answer here. And Kirk is, he loves people. He cares about people.
He's a very caring individual.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
passionate.
yes, I realize I'm projecting a modern sensibility onto a character from the 60s. I get that.
Right.
But what I want to believe, that's what I want to believe. So that's the thing that makes this kind of work for me. That
True.
And the episode and the line of, unattainable by temperament or training, to say that it's not all women, it's just her.
Right. Exactly. And just to put a button at the end of this, the story of this was actually written by Gene Roddenberry with a teleplay by Arthur Singer. I'm not really familiar with his work. So the fact that this was written by the series creator and he was kind of divorced in a lot of ways from the day-to-day on this show, I don't even really know what to make of that information.
Honestly, some of the things that I have read about him, I don't think I'm actually all that surprised.
Yeah, Roddenberry was...
He was a man of his time.
He was a man of his time, kind of in a lot of ways reminds me of my grandfather, who was a man of his own time.
I'm not excusing anything that he allegedly did or said, or I'm not excusing his behavior. It's completely, it's not acceptable. It wasn't acceptable then. It's not acceptable now. And
agreed.
To think that, he has this view of women in general that, like, oh, if she's been wrong, she must be crazy.
Crazy lady. Ooh, get that crazy lady late. Let's put her in the crazy house.
And that she's like this because Kirk rejected her or
of course.
Like, it's
any woman rejected by Kirk, it just becomes a crazy mad loony bird.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, Jen, this has been an interesting couple of episodes.
Yeah.
Doing this good bad. So I would have to imagine that the next time that we have a lull between new programming, that will probably tackle this again. And maybe that'll be you and me. Maybe it'll be me and somebody else, but we will see. Something that I'm really excited about is that we as a program now have a stable of, I don't want to say a stable of talent, like I'm calling you guys thoroughbreds, like your racehorses or something, but between, you and Kay and Peter and Missy and April, my wife, though she, not always like, yeah, I want to jump right in there and do it. We have because everybody has life and schedules and different stuff. I'm glad that I'm able to have you guys kind of in my corner, because there was a time when I started this show 3 years ago where I had a co-host who's just me and him, and he quit. So I was like, oh, what am I going to do? And I found some other folks, and they were with me for a while, and then they quit, and I was scrambling. And that's when I found Peter, and Kay came into the mix. So now it's nice to have a stable of folks that I know that I can count on, and we can rotate. Sometimes we can all do an episode together. So it's awesome. Cool. All right. Well, let's move on to wrapping up the 4th season of Star Trek Voyager. This was third. Oh, I was looking at season 3, part 4, not part 4, season 3. Blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Yes, this is season 3, part 4. This is the final episodes from the spring of 1997. Now, Jen, jog my memory. You and I'm going to ask you your age, because I know you're younger than me. Were you watching Voyager when it was on for the first time, or did you catch up later? Yes. So you saw this in the beginning. And I have described in recent episodes of how I stopped early in season 3, but I came back with a vengeance, and essentially the episodes that we covered in our previous episode. So by this time I was like, boom, I am in. I'm back into watching Voyager. I appreciate it. And then we jump into this group of segments, which with the exception of one or two, I thought was potentially the strongest of what we had in season 3. So anyway, I'll kick it off with one that I really dug because it's an alt time travel one, and we get to see our characters thrown into different roles and stuff. So anyway, episode 21 of the series is Before and After, directed by Alan Craker, who is a regular director of the series. I hear obviously all the time on the Delta Flyers, his name always comes up. So I know that he directed a lot of episodes. Ken Biller did the writing from April of 1997. Shortly before her death in the future, Kes begins to travel backwards in time with a portion of her events occurring during the Year of Hell, which is an episode that we see next season, obviously with different circumstances built around it because Kes is not a character on the show at that point. I loved it, and again, you tend to look at Voyager seasons 1 through 3. In a lot of ways, it's funny because you looked maybe at DS9 seasons 1 through 3, because at the beginning of season 4, each of those two series gained a new character that largely changed the dynamic of the series. So, but I think it was a perfect storm for me with Voyager because you had a writing staff that was finding its feet, and then combined with a new character in the beginning of season 4 that I found was very compelling. And you ended up with episodes like this. So, it's, we've known since the beginning with Kes that her race lives for 9 years, which means they appear to be adult age by the time they're 1 or sooner. And so you naturally have to think that if she's on this ship and it's this long journey home, that there's going to come a point where she ages out, or we're going to see her, pass away. And that's really what you see here. So through the natural occurrence of things, but for her living, as you find as time goes by, a different set of circumstances, things diverge at the Year of Hell when, again, it happens very differently in season 4, but you meet the Krenim, which is this, you don't really learn anything about them in the course of this episode. You simply see their ship and the fact that they have time-based weapons, that in their first attack, Janeway and B'Elanna are killed. At the time of that attack, B'Elanna and Tom have a relationship, which is something that happens. But post that, Kim and Tom become a thing so much so that they get married and they have a kid.
Kim and Tom, that's a different show.
Oh my God. Kes
and Tom.
That is a different show. But what's funny is, of the
Happy
actors,
Pride Month, everyone.
Oh boy. Wow. So yeah, I like it. It's Kim and Tom that are still together in modern day because they do the Delta Flyers together, which is a great show. If you don't listen to it, I that's one of the few. I go back and forth with other podcasts, but that's one of the few that I don't miss because I
love Delta Flyers. They're great.
I really enjoy their reminiscing about the show. But anyway, I love this. Through the progress of that, you get to see Tom become first officer, and you get to see Harry get one of his only promotions to the rank of lieutenant in this alternate future, which of course never happens. Chakotay is captain, so there's no more Maquis on the ship. He's a captain with 4 pips, which I thought was awesome. Tom is lieutenant commander. I love that. Tuvok is a full commander. Even Neelix becomes an officer. He becomes the Harry Kim.
Neelix becomes the security officer, which I think is really kind of fun because it kind of shows that, he's got Tuvok's old job. It's, their friendship just continues to grow in its own way, which is cool.
Right. Yeah. I like it. So but eventually, just like any Star Trek plot, they have to solve how to save Kes, and they get to the point where they infuse her with radiation, and blah blah goes backwards in time, and then eventually she gets to the end of her life and then moves forward again. But the radiation they infused her with means that she reaches back to the right point and everything stops. So one of my favorites of this group. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I like this episode. I don't know if it's one of my favorites, but I enjoy it. It's an interesting episode that does show kind of, Kes episodes are hit and miss. This was a good one.
Agreed. And one of her last, obviously.
Yes. My question is, why wouldn't the future versions remember her telling them about this in the past? Because she's going backwards in time. And every time that she goes backwards, she's like, here's the thing that's happening to me. And at first they don't believe her. And then they slowly believe her a little bit more. And it takes a little bit less of her explaining the same thing over and over again as she goes back in time. I don't know why the future versions don't go, oh yeah,
I remember now.
3 years
Yeah.
ago, I remember you telling me about this.
Right. For the same reason, probably in the Enterprise episode Twilight, people do and don't remember in
Yeah.
bits and pieces. And it's just, it's time travel. It's timey-wimey
Yeah.
plot armor. Yeah.
It did kind of
yeah.
remind me of that episode that we
Yeah.
watched recently for the bracket, but this one did it better, I think.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
And it was while the stakes clearly weren't as high because that episode dealt with the annihilation of the human race. This just had to do with Kess, which is a character that in just a few episodes was gone anyway. But yeah, this is when I remember liking very fondly.
I love the call forward to the Year of Hell and the fact that actually does happen in the next season.
Right.
In general, it's a really cool sci-fi concept.
Totally.
It's neat to show these possible futures. And it's actually pretty solid as far as cast episodes go.
Yeah.
And fun fact, I have a friend whose name is Andrew Kim, and he has cosplayed Andrew Kim from Voyager, the grandson.
Right. Yeah. Oh my! that is a rare cosplay. I'm impressed.
Yeah,
running around. Does he have Kess's present as his?
I don't know. I'll have to ask him sometime.
That's really the character's driving motion is having grandma's present done on time. So it's a big deal. Well, cool. Well, let's keep it. Let's keep it rolling forward. The next episode is yours.
All right. Next episode is Real Life. That is directed by Anson Williams, story by Harry Clore, and teleplay by Jerry Taylor.
Fun fact, Anson Williams is Potsy from Happy Days. Don't know if you knew that.
I did not know that.
There you go. That is if you know what Happy Days is.
I do know what Happy Days is.
No, a lot of my younger co-hosts, when I throw out references like with Kay and Peter, it'll just be crickets when I'm like blah blah blah. So I'm glad to hear.
I didn't have cable growing up.
Okay.
So I watched a lot of reruns of old shows
that was on network
just
shows.
Whatever's on. Yeah. So
I hear you.
Aired April 23rd, 1997. The summary
That's my mother's birthday. April 23rd. That's so funny. All right, I'll shut up now.
The summary is the Doctor creates a family on the holodeck. Which is a very simple way of saying that he creates initially a perfect family on the holodeck.
So insufferable.
So I watched this one with Scott, my partner, who does cosplay the Doctor, and we're kind of filling in some of these episodes of Voyager for him because he doesn't remember all of them. And he asked me when I did watch this, he goes, "Are they supposed to be acting bad? Like bad acting?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they are." So keep watching.
It's how they're written because the doctor wrote, he wrote this holo program or holo novel, and it must be fun to just be, do you have a keyboard and you're like, the wife is, blah blah is June Cleaver and blah blah from Cleaver.
It's what he thinks a family ought to be.
Right.
It's not necessarily that anyone really thought that this is what a family should be, especially not B'Elanna, because she's coming in when he's telling her about this program and she's like, why would you do that? Why would you create a family? Families suck. She's coming in with the baggage of her family.
She didn't have one. Dad ran out. Mom was an aggressive Klingon. Yeah.
And she was traumatized by her family. I don't know if we know this at this point or if that's something we learn later on, but she has a lot of family baggage trauma. So that is coming in. So she's like, I'm going to tweak that program. I'm going to make it a little bit more realistic. Right. So he comes in when he goes back, and instead of everything being spotless and perfect, and, oh my gosh, Father, I can't wait to talk to you. And oh, my dear husband.
Please look at my homework, Father.
Instead
I'll be home to do my chores. Yeah, exactly.
Everything's a mess.
It's like a real
everywhere.
Yep. Everybody's grumpy.
You hear Klingon music coming from upstairs.
That was definitely very pointed. B'Elanna sneaking in there.
B'Elanna, definitely. That's her putting her own spin on this. The mom's running around trying to find things. She's like, I've got a lecture to do tonight. It's your turn to make dinner. And the daughter's just going, Dad,
Mom, mommy.
Exactly.
She's Stewie.
Exactly. And it's like, no, this is closer to something more realistic, by way of B'Elanna Torres, but still it gives the Doctor more to react to work with, to understand what it is to be in a family. And one of the things that happens, his son has Klingon friends that the Doctor doesn't approve of, and it's like, why? How is he so racist, but okay, whatever.
Yeah, right.
I mean, he's worried about his kids.
Yeah,
He originally programmed them to be perfect and to, adulate him. So he's
right.
like, they're disobeying me. He tries to call a family meeting, and everyone's like, this sucks.
Yeah. Whatever,
You can't
bro.
tell
I'm
us what
out
to
of
do.
here. I'm
Yeah.
out of here.
The daughter wants to play Parisi Squares. He's thinking, oh, this is so dangerous. And it turns out that it is.
I would love to finally see what Parisi Squares is like, because
Yeah.
it was a big game in the original series, that Riker played. That, if you remember that episode where they're at the starbase and like Tasha and Worf have a team of security people, they're going to play, and they kind of describe it a little bit, but it's obviously like football crossed with lacrosse, crossed with soccer, but super violent, because
Mhm.
this poor girl, you see what happens to her, you hear what happens to her, but we
Yeah.
still don't see the game.
Yeah. So eventually you find there's an accident, and she can't be saved. The
Yeah.
doctor operates on her, his team of physicians operates on her, and whatever the reason, she can't be saved. She's going to die. And he deals with this by saying, I've completed the program. I'm done.
I'm good.
He
I'm
just
good. I'm all set.
runs away from it, decides he's
Right.
just not going to deal with it. And, that's, introduces the stages of grief. This is denial. And you have Tom Paris coming in for treatment from a reckless activity that he volunteered to do. There's an anomaly out there that he went into. It's
Right.
the B
Yeah.
plot,
B story, such a snoozer.
but it means that the doctor's admonishing Tom for being so reckless. And it's this transference of the anger stage from, the anger he feels towards his daughter, that he's transferring onto Paris. And
Right.
Paris is like, what's up? And Paris also, as we know, has some issues with his family. But he has some words to say too about this, which,
Right.
you know, it's unusually poignant for Tom Paris, but I think that he's a really good character to bring this information in and have this conversation with the doctor,
Yeah.
where he has to realize, you know what, you've got to accept this. Sometimes bad things happen, and that's part of being in a family.
Right.
So he goes back.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, this was a great one. And
Yeah.
I think for some reason I didn't see this one when it first aired, missed it for some reason. Or I may have caught a bit of these in reruns. So it's like summer of 97. I was
Yeah.
catching up on a bunch of these. But yeah, for the emotional impact, and I think for character development, this might be the best one of the patch. But again,
Yeah.
we keep going on, and there are, kind of greater and greater ones as we go with only, we're only talking about 6 episodes here, but we don't really drop the ball, but maybe once in this grouping. So, well, cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's move it forward. Episode 23 is Distant Origin, directed by David Livingston, regular talent of the series. This is Braga and Minosky, two of the regulars on the writing staff from April of 97. A reptilian scientist trying to prove his heretical beliefs, theories, kidnaps Chakotay and draws the entire crew into conflict between his race and doctrine and the startling truth about its origin. This also came out just a few weeks or just a couple of months prior to the second Jurassic Park film in the summer of 1997.
That's fitting.
Which I always wondered, and particularly, I even think in reruns, there was some kind of summertime promotion that made mention of it, like, not that dinosaur thing, blah, blah, blah. And then it was this episode, which I thought just really fit the bill. But this was great. We had an episode that was told right from we didn't see the ship show up at all until maybe the second or third act.
Yeah.
So the whole first act was these two basically dinosaur scientist guys running around. They show up. They go to the planet that we saw at the beginning of the series, where the beginning of the season, where the crew was stranded. They get the remnants of Hogan's uniform, Hogan, who got eaten by a lizard in that episode. And they looked at his badge and they figured out that, we could rebuild the fact that he was a biped and his name is on the back of his rank badge. So he's from a ship called Voyager, and they use their super technology to scan and eventually find the ship, and they board it, and they board it, but they have personal cloaking devices. They get revealed. They have a small firefight. They end up capturing Chakotay kind of by accident, but one of their people gets captured. And then I love the Doctor and Janeway. They do this trying to figure out what he is by going to the holodeck and entering information, and this hologram changes. And I love the Doctor saying, the fella who's napping in sickbay is a dinosaur.
Yeah.
It was awesome. So yeah, this was what's illustrated to us, and again, it pits the overall idea in society in general of religious dogma or some kind of theory or group or whatever it is versus science. And
Right.
science as the Doctor and Janeway, and then obviously Chakotay kind of on his own walk through, is that there was a group of honest to God dinosaurs that before 65 million years ago, before the big old meteor smashed into Earth and wiped them all out, somebody, herded them into a ship and said, let's get out of here, and flew back to the Delta Quadrant, and they landed them on a planet, and they continued to evolve, and they became a bipedal not sentient, but really, a bipedal species, much like our own, but as it turns out, with much greater technology. But the elder dinosaur is just not having this shit. So she says, yep, we captured you. And if you persist in this, we're going to destroy the Voyager ship and strand everyone in a prison colony. And so our science guy eventually has to back down, which sucks. But it rings a little too true of some things that we see in societies throughout history, and maybe even some things that are happening in this day and age, which I found this to be incredibly forward thinking. So as I said, it just keeps getting better and better. And I'm on the last page of our summary, and of the next 3 episodes, only the next one that we're going to talk about, I didn't really care for. The other 2 were totally awesome. So great 6-pack of episodes. But anyway, your thoughts?
I really like this one also. My notes have her listed as Dinosaur Kai Wynn.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the struggle between science and doctrine is so, again, you have a tragedy at the end of this one, because she's
Big
like,
time.
could you be mistaken? And she keeps insisting that he
He's like, I am not mistaken. Yeah.
Right. But until she decides to imprison Voyager's crew and say that, well, they can't have anything to do with us either, we have to put them on a prison planet, then he recants. And it's tragic. One thing that I want to say, the note I have 47 genetic markers that are similar. So magic number again.
I love me some. It's the name of the show.
Non-indigenous beings have no rights under doctrine.
Yeah, because you're chattel. They're livestock.
And again, a really neat sci-fi concept. The science itself makes not a lot of sense, because in order to work, we'd have to have a race of lizard people on Atlantis, essentially. Which
they're
means
down there. Yeah, they'll find them. Did they find them on Sequest? We haven't watched the 2nd season yet.
No, but they find them on Doctor Who.
Yeah. There you go. You got it.
Would be. I think this would be a great idea for a Doctor Who episode. I have seen
crossover
most of Doctor Who. Like, this got a very Doctor Who vibe from me.
Gotcha.
More than a Trek vibe.
There have been comic book connections between Doctor Who and TNG in particular through IDW publishing in the last 20 years. I've read a few of them, but yeah, they're great. And you're right, a dinosaur follow-up would be awesome.
Yeah.
Fanfic from Jen. I want to see it. I want to see it. I want to see TNG and pick the Doctor of your choosing and do a dinosaur episode. I'm into it.
But yeah, it's still very much fits a Star Trek, because you've got that war between, science, and you've got this first contact situation here, and how do you handle it? How do they handle it? They seem to have their own version of the Prime Directive, where they're, not interfering. They've got their own cloaking. Are they really more advanced if their technology is superior, but their social?
Yeah, exactly. It's very backwards. Yeah.
It's an interesting contrast.
Yeah, definitely an interesting and certainly one of my favorites. And again, I'm pretty sure that I caught this in summertime reruns, and because it was the Lost World, that was the second Jurassic Park movie, the one where Jeff Goldblum was the star. And I feel like the promotion at that time, because that was the summer movie, came out in June or July, really like it connected in that exact same way. So that's always how I think of this one. Like, this is the Jurassic World of Star Trek. So okay, cool. Well, let's move along to. Did I read that one, or did you read that last one? Oh, okay, go for it. All right.
The next one is Displaced, directed by Alan Croker and written by Lisa Klink. Aired May 7th, 1997. Crew members are replaced one by one with aliens from an unknown race. So we've got random people showing up in place of the Voyager crew. They've got about 18 hours before they're fully replaced by these aliens that are just inexplicably switching places with the Voyager
And
crew.
as we find out, they're just playing dumb. Oh, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
saying that to appear benign, basically,
Right.
so that the Voyager crew will trust them. And
Right.
I didn't actually remember this one that well, so I was kind of like, why don't we trust the Lemurians?
Yeah.
But turns out we're right to not trust them.
Right.
Janeway's
Exactly.
kind of got that like something's not right
Yeah.
here.
Something ain't smelling great in the kitchen. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So is it this way? This way. Yeah. We find that the stories of the Voyager precede it. That they're becoming known and anticipated throughout the quadrant because the area that the Voyager crew are being displaced into is a environment which is created specifically for them. And they're
Curious.
told, yeah, that sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Hmm.
So they're told, just why don't you just be grateful that we have this great place set up for you
Right.
and uh, accept your situation gracefully is just a gentler way to say resistance is futile.
Yes, quite graceful. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's very cozy. And why wouldn't you want to live here while we
Mm-hmm.
steal your tech and use all your stuff for this and that? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I just, yeah, I'm with you. Again, this is one I saw in reruns, and even rewatching it now, I had the same experience. I feel like I've always had with this one, which I just wasn't paying attention. I think the only thing worthwhile was that we saw, and we're getting ever closer to, and Tom and B'Elanna becoming
Yeah.
an actual couple, which happens almost immediately in season 4. So we're just a few
Yeah.
episodes away from that. But you get them, they're spending time together on the holodeck. Tom has basically a version of Worf's calisthenics program where they're fighting monsters with a batleth. But again, B'Elanna's busy resisting his charm. So that part's a little bit textbook. But then they have a lot of interactive back and forth when they're trying to, go between the habitats and basically, break out. And they're, Tom's like, I'm giving you an order. You can't give me an order. Oh, I have 2 days seniority and I'm a bridge officer. So it's like they're having their little flirting, whatever it is. That's about it. The plot to me seemed very formulaic and super duper forgettable. I don't even remember why the Nerians were doing what they were. It was,
That's
did
just
they
their
have
way of
something?
colonizing. They said that this was their preferred method to warfare. It's a gentler assimilation
Right.
technique. I've said about previous episodes in season 3 that they're sort of metaphorical Borg sorts of things, where there's a lot of stories about colonization and ways that colonies can exist,
Right.
and the harm that's done to people through that.
Right.
Because we see that similar things in Favorite Son. We even see talks of colonization in Distant Origin, where it's like, well,
True.
is this a colony? Is a dinosaur colony? But this shows the impact that it can have on our crew when
Yep.
they're forcibly removed from what they consider their home on
Right.
Voyager. So it definitely has something to say about that.
Yeah.
The
True.
Tom and
True.
B'Elanna plot does sort of take over near the end, but the thing that I like about Tom and B'Elanna is that they're organic. They were not planned to be together from the beginning of the show.
Right. No,
And
that's
I
very
think
true.
when Star Trek does romance well, it's stuff that isn't planned. So
It's
Tom
not
and
like
B'Elanna,
it's not like Riker and Troy, where it was
right?
like, oh, blonk, here it is from the beginning, but we're gonna pull away from it, and then we'll pull back to it, and then we'll pull way
It's
away
stuff
from
that
it.
you
Yeah,
don't expect, like this, or like T'Pol and Trip on Enterprise, or even
big
Worf
time.
and Dax. Like I don't
Yeah,
know anyone that expected that to happen, and it was
right,
great.
right.
So they're building solutions in a cave with a box of scraps, like Iron
Yeah,
Man.
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's in general, I like the Tom and B'Elanna of this
Yeah, agreed,
more
agreed.
than anything.
Okay,
Yeah.
jumping into an episode that I totally dug. I finished watching this just earlier this week, and I've always loved this one. But again, I didn't see it at the beginning. Episode 25 is Worst Case Scenario. Alexander Singer, a regular, is the director. Ken Biller is the writer. Same thing, a regular. So you got that going for it. May of '97, B'Elanna discovers a holodeck program where Chakotay and the Maquis rebel against Janeway and take over the ship. Insurrection Alpha. I thought this was great. So and it's it's a bit of a mystery at the start. You open up with B'Elanna just walking down a corridor. She's wearing her regular uniform, but if you get closer, you see she has an ensign's pip on.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's that all about? Regular looking Chakotay walks up, which again, Chakotay at the end of season 3 and Chakotay at the end of season 1 wouldn't look the same, but it's like, okay, well, you're not going to change his hairstyle for this one episode. Plus, that's just poetic license. That's all right. But you quickly find out that this is half of a program about, well, what would we do if the Maquis decided to rise up, even though there's, less than a quarter of the crew is Maquis. They could still find a way if they got some of the Starfleet people on their side to take the ship, and what would that be like? So B'Elanna had discovered this by accident. She gets Tom involved. Everybody starts finding out about it. They're all playing it. Tuvok then reveals that he wrote half of the program, but eventually decided it wasn't really necessary, and he gave up writing it. But it's agreed that, like, hey, you know what? This is, everybody's having fun with this. We're potentially a generational ship, and having our own entertainment and art and culture is something that's really key. So I'd like to see it finished. And so Tuvok and Tom take on the course of finishing it themselves. But by opening it up, they find out that it's a trap laid by the now deceased Seska. Before she left the ship, she found the program.
She's got a present for you.
Oh, she turned it into it's a death present, and it's so much fun. So, it was great. So you got Tom and Tuvok running around in this deadly hologram. Again, holodeck with, no safety protocol. Why does anybody use the holodeck anymore? You stand a good, 3 out of 5 chances that it's going to kill you, but people still keep going back. I guess it's there. Is it like people who like extreme sports is like using the holodeck? Like, I know it could kill me, but I sure do love, surfing with the sharks or whatever. I don't know anything about that kind of stuff.
I'm not that person.
I know, but I love this. It was it was a great Star Trek story. It was a great adventure story. You got to see our characters all, and it's one of those great episodes. Robbie McNeil over on Delta Flyers talks all the time about he loves episodes of their shows where everybody in the cast has something to do.
Yes.
Within the and everybody did. So you had B'Elanna, Tom, Harry, maybe not so much. Neelix kind of sorta. Chakotay was a big part. Janeway was a big part. And then you got a dead bad guy coming back in the form of a hologram who's still incredibly lethal. So no matter what they do, Tom and Tuvok are not going to make it out alive. And it was fun and exciting. I love the twists and turns. And Janeway had the narrative parameters file open so she could write things that could happen. And, then a plasma torch would appear so they could put out a fire in front of them, or you could give them a phaser. Yeah.
Even when they thought that they couldn't, they found ways to help, which I think is a really Star Trek thing to do.
I know.
I like this one very much also. The conversations about what should the program be reminds me very much of discourse that you have on the internet, which I'm sure was happening at the time as well.
Right. The beginning of the internet.
Yeah. And definitely now it kind of calls forward to, well, the show should be, the holo novel should be logical. It was not meant to be a holo novel. And Tom's got these ideas, which, as Tuvok says, do not flow from logic.
Right.
You need characters to act in character.
Tahane and the the dictates of poetics.
Yes. So everyone's got different ideas about how the show should go according to what they want it to be, kind of, instead of just sort of letting Tuvok write what was intended. But nobody's really wrong about it either. Everyone gets a different thing out of the holo novel. Some people it's excitement, some people it's, the intrigue, some people it's something else. I had the notes, the doctor says, "I have ideas." Tuvok says, "Go to your room," and just shuts him off. That's kind of how I interpreted that one. Yes. Deactivate the hologram.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was awesome.
I like this one. I mean, it was a bottle episode, which I don't mind, because the next episode is definitely not a bottle episode, because we've got so much going on in the next one.
Holy cow. Well, let's definitely not waste any time, and we'll jump into the season finale. This one's all yours.
Scorpion Part 1. directed by David Livingston, written by Brannon Braga and Joe Menosky, aired May 21st, 1997. Voyager must pass through Borg space, only to discover a new alien race that is even deadlier than the Borg.
Oh my gosh. Yes, the only we're talking about species 8472. The only merch 8472 related actually came out. There were two. They actually came out around this time. I had one, but not the other. One was a box set of Playmate figures of that and Harry Kim, but Harry Kim was all, because it attached him. So he has a little bit of that. And the other one was basically a bendy figure. And that's the one that I had that you could be like, not like Stretch Armstrong, like it was big, but it was like, you could go, that was, I had that since obviously lost it over the years, but that would be a super cool figure if they ever really get back into the swing of making Star Trek figures. I'd love to have that one, but oh my gosh. Okay. I jumped in, but yeah, this is yours. Yeah. So just break it down for me. What are you feeling watching this?
Oh my God. We got the shortest cold open ever, just Borg ships exploding. And we're like,
15 seconds.
What's going on here?
Big time.
We have I think the first appearance of Da Vinci as the holodeck program.
John Rhys-Davies, Sala from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
And Professor Arturo from Sliders, which is how I first encountered him.
Sliders is I just made plans with Todd Oxford. That's going to be a future segment of the Facts of Geek Life we're going to record next month.
I like this as her holo program of choice, as opposed to the weird romance novel thing. It just feels better for her as a scientist and a woman who's very curious.
Right.
But anyway, that aside, we are entering Borg space. We knew it was going to happen. We knew this was going to be here. And finally we're here. And they find that there is a species that is, species 8472. They figure out that this is the enemy of the Borg. And there's two ways that this could go. Chakotay says, why don't we just settle down? Why don't we just kind of either turn back or figure out, we cannot cross the Borg space.
Yeah.
Right. And Janeway's like, no, we're going to find a way, because she is so determined to get these people home that she's going to make an alliance with the Borg to get through their space. And Chakotay brings up the parable of the scorpion and the fox. The scorpion wants to cross the river. The fox says, I can't carry you because you will sting me and we will both drown. No, the scorpion says that. If I sting you, then we'll both drown.
Right.
They go through it. The scorpion stings the fox, and that scorpion says it's in its nature to do that.
And they both die.
And they both die. Yeah. So he uses this as a cautionary tale to Janeway to kind of go, why don't we rethink this? And like so many good Star Trek episodes, neither one is right and neither one is wrong. It could really go either way. And the
deepest of the moral quandaries, yeah.
Yeah. So that moral quandary is at the heart of this episode. They do go on to the cube and find that it's there's piles of Borg here. Kes has a vision about piles of Borg and about how everyone's going to die. They run into 8472 on the cube. The CG was great at this time. But it looks not so great now. But back then, this was amazing.
I know. And plus, can you imagine, and God, I hope someday that Voyager does get remade into high definition. It's clearly only standard definition. What this would look like if it was kind of on par with what we're seeing these days. It's kind of scary, but so cutting edge for 1997 and on TV. Yeah. But yeah, just an absolute great story. Mm-hmm. I tuned in and watched this obviously when it aired on because again, this was a network show, so the air dates you see here aren't just week of. It was on that day, and it was on Wednesdays or Thursdays or something. And this was just like, wow, Voyager and DS9 for airing at the same time just had absolutely nothing to do with each other, which is something that I know a lot of people in fandom struggle with, particularly with the newer stuff. Like, well, this isn't my Star Trek because it's not like A, B, and C. Well, you know what? There's this other show airing at the same time that's totally different, but it's got a different vibe. And if they all had the same vibe, I say this all the time, if you ate pizza for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, how long would it take before you couldn't even look at a pizza? You know what I mean?
Right.
Life has to have some variety, storytelling, entertainment has to have different bits and pieces to it, or just who cares, right? And this really delivered that in spades. So it was great. It started the tradition of Janeway goes crazy for a little bit, but then, you know, and Chakotay's like, you can't do this. She does that in Equinox. She does that in the Unimatrix Zero. Like, well, I got to do this thing, and I know you don't agree with me, but at the end of it, you know, they kind of hug it out and kiss and make up, for lack of a better.
I would challenge the use of the word crazy there. I think that she's passionate about
Sure.
her goal. And she is, you know, Chakotay says that her passion and her goal are blinding her to reason.
More accurate, absolutely.
Yes.
Blinding to reason, which again, you know, in Equinox, for example, which is, you know, 2 seasons from now,
similar thing.
her rage and like her desire to punish Captain Ransom in that story for what he was doing, which we talked about Equinox in our bracket challenge, kind of blinding her to her regular, you know, character traits, her, you know, general way of being much more accurate. So I appreciate that correction.
I do think it's in character for her, though, because she is so passionate and she does have these goals.
Right.
It's just that when you're out there on your own with no one to fall back on, and you're the one who's in control,
right.
The stress levels are very high,
right?
And she's going to suffer stress and trauma, and I think that would make anybody act quote unquote out of character, but it stems from the traits that she's already shown.
Right. And if it happens consistently, doesn't that really constitute her character?
That's the thing. It is consistent.
Yeah.
So
no, I had not thought about it that way. I appreciate that. Look at that. Even I am capable of learning something in my old fan ways. Well, that wraps up season 3, not season 4. Let's do a favorite and a least favorite of this grouping before we wrap things up. So let's go with the favorite. I know this is a big struggle for me, but I'll throw you out there. You can go first. Just a favorite.
My favorite of this is Real Life. I kind of knew that even before, like when I saw what the grouping here was. I think that it's poignant. It has a message. It's great character development for the Doctor. And it gets me in a place where I really feel something. The least favorite is Displaced, even though it's got the Tom and B'Elanna of it that I like. The main plot, even though it has something to say, they all have something to say, but Displaced is probably the weakest of this group for me.
Yeah, I hate to echo it, but I kind of have to say the exact same thing across the board. While Scorpion part 1, or it was actually just called Scorpion at the time, it became a part 1 after there was a part 2. It was the big flash and the excitement and the cliffhanger, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's one of the best. When you really cut to the core of character development, seeing a character grow, there's no other way to slice it that Real Life really makes a difference in the Doctor and his, you know, role as what every Star Trek has, which is the non-human character that reflects back on humanity. Spock, Odo, 7 of 9 later in this show, you know, Worf and TNG and DS9. So several characters, but definitely one per show. This I think, you know, much like the 2-parter in season 7 where all the Hirogen holograms have run amok and how the Doctor gets thrown into that plot line really shows us how the characters grow. But yeah, right there with you with Displaced. It's kind of it's a nothing burger to me. It's another kind of story of the week. And yeah, the Tom and B'Elanna piece is not enough to carry an episode. So they have to kind of wad it into this piece of gum of this other, you know, kind of run of the mill boring plot line. So, well, cool. Gosh. All right. Wrapping up. So we, as a show, are going to be moving on to season 3 of Enterprise in our next episode. And Jen, thank you so much for joining in. Thanks
only for having me on.
Yeah, to having this. You know, you're part of our family now here on Code 47. So we know that we're going to see you back in the future. But the beauty of having as I said, you and Kay and Peter and Missy as a stable of contributors, is that I love working with all you guys. You all have a lot of really interesting, diverse, different perspectives, and I'm very grateful for that. So, where do people find you out there in the real world, as it were, online, the real world of online?
Yeah. I have a link tree. So that's linktree/Jen Watson Art. That has links to my Etsy shop, my Instagram, my Facebook page for my art as well. Pretty much everywhere except for Twitter, I'm Jen Watson Art. So you can find me there.
Totally awesome. And as always, you can find me over on Twitter at the C3. Go ahead and spell it out. My lovely wife in April and I do run the USS Grand Petoskey, as I had mentioned, one of the biggest chapters of the International Star Trek Fan Club in the world. I also run Region 13, which is Michigan and Eastern Canada. If you are a Trekker within the sound of my voice, or no matter where you are, find us at the socials, USS Grand Petoskey, and I'm happy to connect you with Trekkers in your necker of the woods. So with that, friends, as always, thank you for joining us. I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring, and to keep on trekking.
And be the Starfleet that you wish to see in the world.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for more great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast services around the world. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us on Facebook or our new Discord server, or follow at Secret Friends U on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends Unite on YouTube and visit our merch store at tpublic.com. Just search Secret Friends Unite. Thanks for listening.